So my name's Ash Hunt. I'm the Group CISO at Sanne Group. So I look after all of information security at the organization. We're a FTSE 250 business in fund administration and alternative asset management. Within the sort of purview of my responsibilities, I look after security operations, as well as technology risk management, control architecture, and technology governance. So quite a wide-ranging remit. I think there's a disparity between what people think they should be concerned about against what the realistic challenges are when you do actually migrate. You can be secure and insecure on-prem as much as you can be in either public or private cloud environments. But the nature of the environment does make a few unique challenges for organizations that they need to be prepared to tackle. And the first of which is really having a robust understanding of your assets. When you move to a cloud environment, things get a lot more fluid, particularly if you've got quite a high tempo DevOps function. And it can be very easy to begin losing track of assets being spun up, VMs, applications, Power Apps, whatever it might be. And so if you haven't really got a robust culture around providing an effective record of truth, CMDB, whatever it might be beforehand, then you're going to really need to rely on something like that when you move to the cloud. The second thing is your kind of perimeter defense approach to security starts falling by the wayside. So as you move into cloud environments, you become a lot more, I like to say, porous with the way you exchange data, not only internally as a business, but also with clients and various external parties. So having a very clear understanding of your data ingress and egress channels is really critical, because you can then pinpoint where you're going to begin deploying effective DLP controls, be they preventative or detective in nature. And so this isn't really just talking about the kind of traditional SEG controls around email. This is talking about having a really robust CASB. If you have a CASB, is it just doing forward proxying, reverse proxying, whatever it might be, but you need to have those requirements very clearly defined and articulated that match the kind of environment and the business that you're conducting in that environment, and ensuring that that is clearly articulated, not only within information security, but across the whole of technology, because very much often you're working with infrastructure, development operations, and other teams. And I think my final point would be then, and this is probably truer for some businesses than others, but because you've then made a step change in terms of the perimeter of your organization by moving into cloud, it's really critical to have a robust, what I call an external party cartography, understanding the nexus and all the interrelationships between the parties that you have that are accessing your network, either coming straight into your network, or indeed just touching your network kind of on the periphery. And that's not always a third or fourth party. Sometimes those dependencies can be quite far down the chain. So having an understanding of those interrelationships and where your business may have loss exposure is crucial if you're going to operate securely in the cloud. For organizations that are in the cloud, there's a number of areas where you can really make swift progress and in a really positive direction that yields benefits, not only for security, but for the wider technology environment. So I think the first is have a really granular understanding of your infrastructure, particularly if you're running infrastructure as a service, and if you're spinning things up in Terraform and whatever it might be. And the reason I say that is because typically, and especially if you're in public, which lots of organizations are, there's the new delineation between your remit of responsibility, which is the content sitting on that infrastructure, as opposed to the provisioning of the infrastructure directly. So there's a renewed focus then, I suppose, for baseline configuration, which is now a shared responsibility. But be under no illusion to transform yourself from just simply operating in the cloud to really effectively and securely operating in the cloud. You need to have a very clear understanding of where the provider's responsibility stops and your organization's responsibility starts. And the more you can get involved and entrenched in the detail around that, the better it is, because there's also a huge amount, and this brings me sort of a segue onto my next point, but there's a huge amount of capability out of the box that you can leverage in cloud environments that probably wasn't as true with on-prem. So you look at a lot of the capabilities, for example, in AWS, AWS Shield, Detect, etc. And they provide organizations a fantastic handrail, particularly ones where they may be struggling with resource, especially post moving to the cloud, to make a big kind of leap forward in terms of their security capability, but also op efficiency, right? So to really enhance the kind of operating cost model that you're running in technology. And then I think finally, in terms of, I suppose it's not a concern, but more of a tip to address a concern around transformation is certainly from security's perspective, security orchestration. The cloud environment offers huge capability for rationalization and ensuring that all of your tools are kind of speaking to the same problems that they're addressing. So if I mention like DLP, you should really have a kind of overarching view to how your CASB, your secure web filtering, your SEG controls, your behavior analytics on email, you should have they should all be interacting with each other because they're all addressing fundamentally the same problem. And then likewise with the advancement, particularly in machine learning and NLP, having effective security tools that can ingest huge amounts of data based on use cases, very specifically crafted use cases that reflect your risks in your organization is critical, because you'll start finding as you move forward on your cloud journey that you can then be sort of overwhelmed by the amount of data there is, and you then have a challenge of being very picky and chosen about what insights you actually want to yield. And you only ever want the things that are going to inform decision making and then underpin action to be taken, whether it's by yourself, the board, or whoever. So I think it's about harnessing really what you've got, coordinating all of your capabilities in an effective manner and purposing them in a way which can give you the insights you need to enable effective action. So I think the word right means different things to different organizations, and there's no one perfect target operating model for an information security function. If you're a smaller organization that's moved to the cloud, it may be that you operate a kind of heavily outsourced model. You've got an MSSP, and they'll very much have the capability at their fingertips to harness all the potential of the cloud, and they'll be used to the routine behaviors of operating in that environment. And then you may just need a couple of people inside your organization that understands the business requirements to direct their action in the right area. On the other end of that spectrum, you may, particularly with large organizations, have a kind of much more well-resourced in-house model. And the challenge there is then ensuring that you've got all of the skills that, not so much that fit you well for today, but are actually going to be capable of operating the environment and continuously improving it in perhaps half a decade's time. And that can be challenging. Fortunately, there's huge amounts of handrails in the industry to help boost and I guess improve your analysts' skill sets, and that goes on a wide range of aspects of the cloud environment, be it enterprise architecture, it could be in development, operations or DevSecOps or anything like that. And because you've kind of got those mechanisms to hand, as long as your organization is knows what it wants to invest in, and then actually provides that investment for your teams, then it's more around attitude and aptitude then, because you've got the right kind of people who want to learn, and you're just giving them a mechanism to learn something new. And it's critical that you do, because the cloud environment changes, information security changes on a highly frequent basis. And so you need teams really that are just simply agile, flexible, passionate, and just want to kind of be in that arena, which is often sort of, hit with a lot of flux and a lot of change. And so that kind of adaptability is really particularly useful in the cloud environment. So it's just about having a team that's got stretch potential and then giving them the mechanisms to achieve that. And I think actually a lot of the providers in the cloud space are helping organizations achieve that much more so than any of the kind of legacy on-prem infrastructure providers, which I don't think perhaps by comparison have offered as much to upskill analysts in the same way. So I think in reality, most people kind of go anyway, usually by some sort of strategic decision, and it's a bit of catch up, and there's a lot of retroactive wishful thinking about, I wish we'd done X, Y, and Z. A lot of it's kind of the kind of boring quotidian stuff around like due diligence. Having a record of all your assets is probably the single most important thing anyone in any piece of technology environment could ever do, particularly security, but it doesn't get done. Upstream and downstream dependencies, which again is very closely linked to your asset register. I've seen countless organizations move to the cloud and things, even in a lift and shift, get switched off or amended in some way, and then no one knows why things up and down the line are breaking. And that's because the baseline configuration maybe changes, or it wasn't documented in the first place. It's almost like you just need to be super confident about knowing your world before you make that kind of transition. Or on the flip side, acknowledge that actually we haven't got a great grip on this, and there's loads of it that's not going to be fit for purpose for the business anyway, so we're just going to discard it and sort of start afresh. And I think that is where cloud can come into fruition really well, because it's got such agility to it that as long as you've got very clearly defined business requirements and the resource at hand and the skill set, then you can kind of actually start building things pretty quickly and enabling the business in a way that technology, and particularly information security, was not able to serve as the business historically. The challenge typically that is the case in all the instances that I've seen is when you are lifting and shifting or doing a complete rebuild and migration to a cloud environment when you're carrying all the problems that you had previously with you. And on the rebuild side, it's great because you can kind of address them as you migrate, but it's costly and it's a very, very slow process. And then on the other side is you get it in quickly, but you've got the same level of remediation to do. And this time maybe a bit worse because your threat landscape's shifted at the same time. So it's just about having confidence in understanding why you're actually going to the cloud, and to ensure that you've got a really clear strategic objective and an effective series of sort of tactical steps to get you there.